an absolute honour to be invited up to the world's oldest football ground to play a part today. Not only do we evaluation day and bring the wonderful mini museum up, but also to play a part in valuing the world's oldest football trophy, the Youdan Cup. As a proud Sheffielder, it's something I'm very, very familiar with, and it's just incredible to be still looking at what is the starting point of everything that's a football trophy that follows onwards. It's, in terms of what it means, it's part of Hallam FC's birthright. Thomas Youdan, an incredibly clever man, a theatre owner from Sheffield that owned a theatre called the Alexandra, long, long gone unfortunately, but a clever man in so much as he realised that back then, this growing game of football, if he was going to get his name in the newspapers, the social media of the day, then what better way to do it than to put together a football trophy, a competition that every time it's mentioned in the press, they mention Thomas Youdan, they mention the Alexandra Theatre, product placement at its earliest and very, very best. We just had a colleague chatting about this trophy, a silversmith who was coming to see somebody, and every day is a learning day. Firstly, I'd always thought it was manufactured by Mappings. It turns out it's a company in Sheffield called Martin, Hall and Co. They were based down where the big roundabout is on your way into the city now. So that was something I didn't know. The second part is, because this wasn't the intended trophy, this was always going to be a stand-in. What Youdan did was commission something far bigger, far grander. When the big day came to go and collect it, to pay for it, to present it, it wasn't done. And the silversmith turned around and said, look, we'll finish it, don't panic. Pick yourself a wine jug off of that shelf.
There you go.
And we'll get it engraved for you. So I've always viewed it as being a bit of a stand-in. How wrong could I have been? The workmanship on this.
That's wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
When you're high Victorian, typical of the design of the time and the way it's manufactured, you know, they do it sort of outside in, so to speak, and the classic claret jug. And Martin Hall and Co, we know, did sort of flatware, they did toast racks, believe it or not, but to do this, I guess, off-the-shelf silver trophy for, of course, football back in those days was brand new, pretty much as we know it. So what a wonderful thing to see, and thank you for showing it to me, coming all the way from Sheffield. So, and you see quite a lot of this trophy. Obviously, you take care of it most days.
Yeah, and I suppose when you look after it and see it every day, although when you do a tour or you're talking about Sheffield football history, you enthuse about it, you talk about it. You know what? Just finding out about the detailing, how it's put together, and the craftsmanship and the workmanship, which was something I'd never even considered. I'm now looking at a completely different light. You know, there's so much Sheffield as a city has given to the world of football. The Worlds of Association Football were written here in 1858. The world's oldest football club resides here. We're at the world's oldest football ground.
Looking at the slope, which is wonderful. What an absolute amazing thing to see. I'm standing here almost at a side, but it's wonderful.
Bringing that here is probably because it was lighter to carry upwards on the slope than carry the big one. I'll look at it in a completely different way, of course, but now you and I've got the job of valuing what we think it's worth. And I mean, how long is a piece of string? How do you value something like this?
Well, we have examples, and of course, being sort of known football history, you know, you and I recognise the FA Cup.
Yeah.
Not the FA Cup as recognised today, because that doesn't really, you know, that's what people know, but back in the day, it was a totally different trophy. And having sold it, having seen it and valued it, and also sold it in 2005 for £500,000 for a trophy, and then this is an earlier, not quite a grand competition, but an earlier trophy, and the earliest trophy, bearing in mind what the real sold for, over £1 million. So I think this trophy, if it came to auction, we must be looking at around about £200,000 to £300,000 at auction. It's not going to happen, that we do know, but for insurance, we're probably looking around about £350,000 for insurance. A rare thing, an important thing, what a wonderful treasure to see and hold and chat about. It's wonderful, and as a football historian and a specialist, just a pleasure to see.
Yeah, it's not very often that you get the chance to see, touch and appraise something which in essence changes the world. And I always stand and look at this and think, do you know what, everything that follows after is a result of a lad from Sheffield thinking, do you know what, might be a good idea to give a trophy for this competition. Glad he did it. And
just think, 1866, hundreds of years later, he wanted obviously notoriety, Thomas Youdan, and we still talk about him today. So he made his fortune, he made his mark, and there we are.